It was the summer of 2016. I was 15 years old, and it was when all of the weird clown stuff was happening. Me, my little sister and my mother were on our way back home after a road trip to visit our grandparents. We stopped at a gas station at around 6 a.m. It was still very dark outside. My sister and I were dead asleep until I heard my mom leave the car. Me and my sister were laying in the back seat. Her head was on the opposite side of the car, and we were directly next to each other on the seat, so I could see perfectly out of her side of the car window. Anyways, I wake up and I'm really groggy. But suddenly my attention is jerked to its maximum capacity when I heard a horrifying pitchy laugh that didn't even sound real. In that moment, I thought I was in some weird lucid dream state until I snapped back to reality. I sat up straight and looked out of the windshield, and there was this man with the red balloon dressed up very similarly to the original Pennywise but dirtier and cheaper. I watched in actual fucking disbelief as he went from person to person, laughing in people's faces. He went up to a little girl and her mother, pinched her cheek, got up in her face, and said something along the lines of, "Hey princess, wanna be my friend?" And when the mom hit him and screamed at him to get the fuck away, he started laughing like a maniac again. Then he skipped over to our car, saw me inside, literally shaking under my blanket, pressed his face up against the glass really hard, and started pointing and laughing at me. I pulled the blankets up above my head, but I could still hear him laughing his ass off. I heard him try to jiggle the door handle a few times as well. The only thing that sent him away was the mother of that little girl yelling at him and threatening to call the police. I heard him leave. When I sat back up, I saw him skipping away, still laughing. It almost sounded like gagging at this point. Later that day, we came across an active missing person search in a forest by the road, not too far away from that gas station. I have no idea if he was involved, but I remember riding by and feeling like it could have easily been me or my sister. I was 15 then, now I'm 19. But the details of this weird experience have never left my mind. I'm a student filmmaker. I have been for about 7 years. About 2 years ago, we were scouting locations for the road-inspired short film. One of these locations was an abandoned motel. It used to be next to the main highway, but business dried up in the 80s when the new interstate was built about 40 miles away. The owners left it behind in the late 80s, and it's been untouched apart from one of the buildings being used to store some mechanical stuff in the 90s. The building that didn't get used in the 90s was completely falling apart. Practically no walls were completely intact, and the roof was falling in most places. The other building was in relatively good shape, no holes in the ceiling, only one entrance that was difficult to get through. It had all its internal walls removed, with only a few small individual rooms within the building. Completely dark and lots of places to hide. Once we squeezed through the entrance, we yelled out but didn't hear any response. We went about taking footage inside to refer to later, just wandering around the place. Tucked into a corner was a filthy mattress with some blankets thrown over it. I saw this and assumed some drifter had been through a while ago. That was, until I looked into a trash can near the mattress. Inside the trash can was some food waste, including an apple core. That didn't seem too weird to me, until I realized the apple core hadn't even turned brown yet. I felt my heart drop and froze for a second. I yelled out to my friends, "Guys, I don't think we're alone in here." As soon as I finished speaking, we heard a large metal crash from one of the more hidden areas, and heard footsteps running toward us. I shined my flashlight in their general direction on my way out, but the sunlight was really bright and blinded me for a second, so I couldn't see anything. All I know is that whoever was in there didn't follow us out. We didn't stalk around long enough to give them a chance to change their mind. I swear to you, I have never felt such dread as when I saw that fucking apple core. This happened to me when I was in 11th grade. I used to have an early morning math class. It was at 5 in the morning and this happened during winter, so at that time it was still dark. The class was not far from my home, so I usually walked. There were two ways of getting there, one was well lit with streetlights, and the other was not. But since I had to meet with a girl on my way to class and we used to go together, I took the dark road. That road wasn't scary or anything, and it was directly connecting my street to hers. Now, keep in mind, that road had thick vegetation on both the sides, and no other connecting roads between my street and hers. So one day, I was walking towards her house and I noticed a lady walking in front of me. She was walking in the same direction I was, She was wearing a pink robe and had straight silver gray hair. I stopped walking as soon as I saw her. All I could think was, where did she come from? Because as I said, there were no other connecting roads and both sides of the road covered with thick growth. Now call me crazy, but I didn't turn around or run even though I was really scared. All I could think was, if I look away she is gonna jump on me, or if I turn around she will be behind me and stuff like that, like in the horror movies. So I just continued walking in the same direction, but very slowly so as to not reduce the distance between us, and I didn't look away from her. When she reached the end of the road, she stopped and I did too. She stood there for a few seconds and then leaned to the right, raising her left feet off the ground a little. And then she turned left and disappeared into the darkness. I waited a few minutes and then continued walking. I stopped at the end of the road and looked in the direction she went. I couldn't see anything because it was so dark. I turned right and went on my way, looking back every few minutes to make sure she wasn't behind me.